Let's discuss further. We're now joined by Etienne Retief from the South African Institute of Professional Accountants. Great to have you with us, Etienne. Hi. A major question is, does this actually help to curb consumption, firstly? Or is it, like some say, a fig leaf just to raise more revenue? Luckily, we have examples. So you've looked at Mexico. Just tell me what that example tells us.
Yeah. Look, we've looked at more than just Mexico, because other countries have introduced it. The problem is that most of these introductions is 2011, 2012, so it's not that many years that we've got to actually analyze and see the long-term effects that this has had. But preliminary results show that there has been reduction in high sugar drinks, and the problem is that in context there's often speculation being made in terms of job losses and what effect the sugar tax actually would have. And I think there the context must be understood. It's two parts. One, we need to expand the tax base, and that is done by additional tax. And the second would be to look after the health of the population and protection of their consumer. And that's where the benefit of the tax has essentially a two-pronged effect, and we can't look at them as singulars.
Yeah, there's the one weighed off against the other. Just stick with me on this. Does it reduce consumption? You're saying there's not really academic research, but signs that it reduces consumption of drinks in the first place, because some are saying maybe it's like smoking. People are still going to drink sugary drinks.
Well, the initial results that came out of Mexico was there was a 10% reduction in high sugar drinks and a 12% increase of alternatives such as water and sugar-free drinks. Obviously, we'd have to look over a longer period as to what the sustained effect is. But I think the context is that a lot of the beverage industry and them are saying why they're being targeted. The reality is that we're not targeting sugar, we're targeting excessive sugar. Because a study that was done in 2015 basically showed that the average South African consumes 25 kilograms of sugar a year. Now that's excessive, and that is where the problem actually lies. So that's what the target is, to reduce sugar and not to avoid sugar.
Is it only beverages that have excessive sugar though, or are they right to claim that they're being targeted? And I thought it's a quagmire, because there's hidden sugar everywhere we hear, but surely you can say over a certain threshold, over a certain number of grams, we tax a whole range of goods. Are they being singled out?
I don't think they're being singled out on a deliberate point to say only beverages because of it being a beverage. It is a little bit more fundamental than that. The reality is that a high sugar drink adds very little value. In fact, many call it empty calories, because all they do is add calories and insulin response and add very little value in terms of fiber, protein, minerals, vitamins. So effectively that's one that I can cut, and most dietitians in that will tell you to cut it. It's an easy
target, I guess.
Correct. But secondly, we must also remember that when I'm eating, I feel full. Now, when I drink, I don't get the same result from it. Experts have shown us that the effect of how our body metabolizes and uses the sugars is totally different in these drinks, which makes it not as good an option in terms of calories as what food would be. And if you look at it, the standard or normal adult or woman or male, you're looking at between 6 and 8% of their daily consumption or calorie intake can be taken by a single can of cool drink. For a child of, let's say, 3 years old, that's 16% of their daily intake of calories from a single tin of cool drink.
For adults, though, is 6 to 8% significant? It means you can eat healthily and you're fine for the rest of the day.
Well, the problem is that if I'm eating a normal, healthy diet, that cool drink could very well put me over the caloric take that I should have for the day. But remember, that only deals with one part, the obesity part. But health issues is not just about obesity. It's also about tooth decay. It's about insulin response. Therefore, we look at things like diabetes. We're looking at cancers, those items. And those are nothing to do with obesity levels. They're to do with excessive sugar. Because remember, sugar on its own does not cause these things. But excessive sugar contributes to the risk factors that these offer, and that's where the problem lies.
Okay, now I'm interested because you've looked at the claims of tens of thousands of jobs that can be lost. But first, your basic stance seems to be that we cannot do nothing because sugar has a cost in itself. Can we quantify that in any shape or form? That cost to the economy because of health issues, people going to hospital, things like that?
I think, first of all, I don't want to put too much emphasis on research done by the beverage industry themselves, because there's certain biases to it, because we haven't had opportunity to actually scrutinize and test those values. Treasury has not released official numbers as to what these impacts or what the final numbers can be expected from it. But I think the important thing for us to remember that when we look at this is claims of 60 or even 72,000 jobs to be lost cannot be supported on the mere fact of, and that same industry also claims that only 3% is the reduction. One can of cool drink is between 6 and 8% on an adult change, not just 3%. If you look at it, individuals will consume. So consumption isn't changing. We're looking at the habit of what I'm consuming. So instead of every day having a Coke, have a sugar-free alternative, maybe on a regular basis, or water. And the claim of drinking out of the tap, I mean, from a convenience point, that's not going to happen.
So let's just clarify. Your argument is that maybe people will turn from a Coke to bottled water, and Coke actually makes both those products, so we won't see the massive job losses that are planned.
Correct. And even sugar-free alternatives, the Coke Zeros, the Tabs, and pretty much every one of those manufacturers have alternatives. They've planned those, and they've known for years this is coming, so they would have already strategically planned those. We can't say that, oh, because we've got good quality water, people will be lost in this industry. When you're out and about and you want a drink, you walk into a convenience store, the choice is you go to a fridge. The majority of the fridge is high sugar drinks. A small portion is sugar-free alternative or water. That's where the shift needs to come from.
Okay, final question for you. It sounds like nothing is basically 100% proven either way. But like you're saying, maybe it's an issue that needs to be looked at. So we've got to start somewhere. What do you think of the actual 20%? It sounds steep, and that's double basically what Mexico introduced.
Well, if you look at it, each country has introduced different levels. Now, the UK, who's about to introduce their sugar tax, they've done extensive research and have actually shown to get the kind of reductions necessary that a 20% tax would be far more effective. And the reason for it is that we need to have a significant price change so that the alternative becomes essentially a cheaper and more feasible option. But I have to also warn that a tax on its own can only have so much effect. The real, and that's when we want to compare with things such as other sin taxes, where we look at, for instance, smoking. We've seen significant reduction in tobacco and smoking products, but it's combination of changes in advertising, regulations, and the taxes, not just taxes on its own.
So it's holistic, and I believe it's also about telling people what's healthy and what's not. Thank you so much. At least an independent view as this debate rages. Etienne Retief from the South African Institute of Professional Accountants. We take a short break. More